Hello everyone, today we're going to be making this very cute Elmer the Patchwork elephant model made out of an old milk bottle or a detergent washing bottle. I think he's very cute. You can use him for just an ornament or as a toy, and he can be made by anybody of any age and any ability. So I'm just going to run through the things that you need to make Elmer. You will need some kind of a bottle with a handle on it. Okay, this is quite a big one. This was like a clothes wash bottle. Use milk bottles or yogurt bottles or anything with a handle, and any size. You'll also need some glue, PVA glue, and a little dish to put it in. Some tissue paper of different colours, and you cut the tissue paper into squares. You'll need some scissors, a craft knife is optional, I find it handy, and a marker, and a little dish to put your glue in, and some water and a brush. Okay. Now as extras, I put here a hairdryer, which is helpful for drying off in between stages, because sometimes he gets a bit sticky while you're doing him. And then I put here as well some LED Christmas lights, which can be used inside the bigger bottles to make them into lamps. It's also good to have some kitchen paper to protect your table, gets a bit gluey, and kitchen paper to wipe your hands on while you're working, because again, it gets quite sticky. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my marker, and I'm going to mark off where you cut the bottle. So using this part here where the end of the trunk will be, draw a line around the bottle. Now, I know some people will think it will be difficult to get this right, and it might be difficult to get it right the first time, but you can always trim it afterwards. So that's the first line. Take a craft knife. Now, if you're a younger person and you feel like you need help with this, which you probably will, it would be good to ask a grown-up to help you with this part of it. You can use scissors, craft knife just a bit sharper. We're going to trim that off later, so I think you can probably see it's not perfect the way I'm cutting it. That's okay. To just wipe the table. Now, then I'm going to cut off here where the trunk is. Stand him up. Yes, he doesn't seem too bad, that one. If he's a bit wobbly, you can trim him in places just to help him stand a bit more steady. Okay. The trunk you might want to cut a little bit shorter than the main body. Just trim a bit off. Something like that. The next step, again, take your marker and you're going to mark out where the legs will go. And all I do is like a, don't know what you call that, half an egg shape. A bit bigger. And one in there. scissors. We'll leave a little hat on. You could even make that into a top hat, which would be nice. This last one's a little bit tricky. Cut on one side into the middle and then cut on the other side into the middle. And once again, it doesn't matter, these things don't have to be perfect. They actually look just as good when they're not perfect. There we go. There's your basic elephant shape. Okay, put aside all the bits of scraps and stuff, so they're not in your way. Now this part, which is the bit we cut off, that bit is going to come in handy for making the ears. As you can see on this one, the ears are quite big. You could do the ears smaller or bigger, it is up to you. I like them big, I think it makes them look quirky. So the shape of the ears is like this. And a little piece sticking off like that, a bit like a mushroom. Okay, and I'll lie it on the other side. Draw around it so I get more or less the same size here for the two sides. Once again, if they come out different, doesn't really matter, because it would just make him look quirky. These are all the pieces that you need. The elephant shape and the two ears. I'll put those aside. The next thing I'm going to do is make my patchwork pieces for as the tissue paper. So I've only got the green still to cut. I just wanted to show you how I do it. For the larger bottles, don't think you have to cut it perfectly. You can cut it from one side to the other. Can look really nice to have different sizes as well, okay? When you cut the tissue paper, you'll find it comes in a little pack like that, and there's a few layers. Separate the pieces with your fingers, because it'll be difficult to do that once you start doing your gluing. And it'll be very awkward once your hands are gluey to try and separate those pieces. And then you can just, like that, with your fingers, mix the colours up so you've got a few different colours close to the top. That's a much smaller one that I cut for the baby elephant. So if you're making a small elephant, cut your pieces quite small. And for the bigger size bottles, these are about 1.5 inches by an inch, something like that. Okay, so next stage is to mix up your glue. I just use an ordinary, very cheap PVA glue. You need a bit of water with it. Not too much, but just mix in the water just to make it slightly more manageable, slightly more runny. This PVA is a little bit old, so it'll take a bit of time for it to melt down, but there we go, it's blending with the water now, and it's just making your PVA a little bit more manageable to work with. Don't want the PVA too thick. And tissue paper is only very light, so you don't need any glue that's really strong. You could use Pritt stick, which I've used before, or something like a glue stick. That works as well. But I think this is probably, when you get used to the method, I think it's probably easier. Okay. Now you can see it's getting quite runny. All these PVAs are slightly different from each other, so the one you get might be quite runny anyway. So you don't want it to be too thick. So take your elephant and glue using your brush. These kind of flat brushes are really handy for gluing actually. Put a little layer of glue down and you can pick up your piece of tissue paper with the brush and just lie it onto the elephant. Once again, use your brush to pick up the colours. That's a double, but it doesn't matter. So you put the glue down first and then you go over the top with the glue afterwards. And you lay the tissue papers over each other. So you're not trying to make it really, really neat. It's more about just doing a kind of a patchwork effect over the top. Oops. You might need your hand here and there. I find it's easier if you don't touch the papers too much because your hand does get gluey. And then the more gluey your hand gets, the harder it is to pick up anything. And also don't worry if the papers get a bit creased or crumpled, it still looks really, really good when you come to the end of it. So again, there's a double layer there. You can see with the double layers the colour's a bit stronger, but it's not better or worse, it's just different. Gives an extra, something extra to look at. And when you come to the top, let's bend the tissue paper is so thin that it kind of bends around corners. So just paste around and bend it around with your brush. Okay. Also, when you come to the bottom of the legs, I'll just show you this now. You've worked your way down to the bottom. Take your piece of tissue paper and lie it on. And leave it so a little bit is sticking out like that. And then go inside and wrap tissue paper around. That gives you a nice neat finish. I'll put a green one there on top. Once again you can see there's a bit sticking out. Glue from the inside and fold the tissue paper over, which finishes off your legs. It's nice to have a few different colours to work with, but equally if you prefer to have your elephant one colour, that can also look really good. So there's ways to make each elephant individual. Go for a bit of orange. We haven't had the orange for a while. And underneath. The paper is so thin that the glue kind of almost goes through it as well. Okay, so you can see what I'm doing with that. I'm going to leave you now and I'm going to complete the rest of the elephant and then I'll come back to you. Okay. Hi again. So just to show you here, I finished the elephant's body, and I did the patchwork tissue paper right over the top of the lid as well because it blends the whole thing together. And now I'm working on the ears. So I just took an ear and covered it with tissue. As you can see here, when they're overlapping at the edges, just use your brush to fold the tissue paper around the shape of the ear so you still get that nice roundy look of the ear. And what's nice is you get all the colours crossing each other, which looks really good. You can use a few little ones if you like, especially for small areas like that. It's always nice to use the smaller pieces because they're just a little bit more manageable. So it's totally random the way that I'm doing the colours, but I'm also thinking a little bit about what colours are next to each other. So if I'm putting down a pink, I might go for a blue next, and then I might go for an orange. So all the time you're kind of swapping the colours. One last little bit there. And one last little bit there. And you can see that with the ears, I've left that little tab bit there sticking out. I've left that without any tissue paper at all, and you'll see why in a minute. It's probably easier not to put the tissue paper there. So those are the two ears. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the other room. I'm going to blow dry them with the hair dryer until they're really dry, and then we can do the next part of the project. Welcome back. The last part of this project is to add the ears to the elephant and the eyes. So I blow dried them. He's still a little bit sticky. Careful when you're picking them up, but the main parts are dry. So I've decided which side of the ears I like best. I think it's this side. And I've positioned them against the head like this at a slight angle. And then I used a marker to mark the length of this on the side of the head. Try and do it sort of at a similar angle, but even if it's not at the same angle, it's okay, because it'll just look a little bit quirky. So using the craft knife again, you might want a bit of help with this. It's quite strong, this. That's it. Cut down on that line, and the same on this side. The thinner milk, the smaller milk bottle was much thinner. The plastic was much thinner. It was much easier to do this. But the good side of having the big bottle is it's much stronger. So you get a stronger elephant at the end of it. So I've cut the slits and then feed the ear in like that. On this side. So I've got the second ear on. I'm just using the brush now just to add a little bit of glue to keep everything in place. And if you see any bits of tissue paper sticking out like there, just stick that back down using the brush. Okay, that's your finished elephant shape. And the very last bit is to make the eyes. Now you can use googly eyes if you want, but it's very easy to make your own. All you do is a circle, but leave a little circle of white in the middle. Okay, about the same size, and then a small pair of scissors. When you cut the eyes out, cut around them so a little bit of the white is showing all the way around the eye. Doesn't have to be perfect. Again, that looks kind of quirky when it's not absolutely perfect. That's why I like hand making things, because of course you can buy all these things, but you can also make them and they're just as nice. Then take your brush, a little bit of glue, decide where you'd like your eyes to be. And that's the finished elephant. As I said, you can use, if you have any of these little LED lights lying around, you can use those inside the bigger ones. It won't go inside a small one, but a bigger one it will. Although you can't see that very well at night time, the light shines through and you have a sweet little lamp. There we go, Elmer the Patchwork Elephant. Hope you enjoy it.